When Quad gave her thank you speech, the entire room clapped. Until they realized who she left out. No names, no shouts, just silence that cut deeper than any words ever could. Why did Quad Webb skip every single woman from Sister Circle during her speech? This wasn't pettiness, it was a silent message built on years of betrayal. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply left their names out, and that silence spoke louder than any thank you ever could. When Quad Webb stood on stage giving an emotional thank you speech, no one expected what happened next. She completely left out the women from Sister Circle. No shoutouts, no names, nothing. Was it just being petty, or was there a deeper meaning behind her silence? Because here's the real story people are not telling. These women were not there for her when she needed them the most. One of them even denied her abuse, after the man admitted to it. So, does Quad really owe them a thank you? Let's dig into that. This was not your average thank you speech. It was quiet, bold, and very intentional. For anyone paying close attention, her silence said more than words ever could. As Quad Webb stepped up to the microphone and began her emotional speech, many fans leaned in, expecting a heartfelt moment. They thought she would offer warm words, show appreciation, and thank everyone who had been part of her journey, especially the familiar faces from her past. People assumed this would be a moment filled with reflection, grace, and unity. But what happened next shocked the entire room. She skipped over Toya Bush-Harris. She skipped the entire Sister Circle cast. Not even a casual mention. Not a single name. That silence was loud. Within minutes, social media lit up like wildfire. Viewers jumped onto Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube with mixed reactions. Some people called her cold. Others said she was holding on to old grudges, but many, especially longtime fans, felt something different. They said it was powerful. They said it was overdue. And more than anything, they said it was real, because here's the part most people missed. This was not just some dramatic moment, created for the cameras. It was not about being petty or seeking attention. It was something far deeper. Quad's silence was a carefully chosen move, a quiet, calculated decision rooted in years of pain, betrayal, and disappointment. What many saw as shade was actually strategy. Behind the polished images, matching outfits, smiles for the camera, and rehearsed conversations was a hidden story, a story full of cracks, heartbreak, and emotional isolation. For years, Quad played her part. She smiled on screen. She showed up for work. She joined group conversations and acted like everything was okay. But behind that performance was a woman who had been hurt by people she once trusted, by women who were supposed to stand with her during her darkest hours. That trust was shattered slowly. It started with the passive-aggressive comments. Then came the subtle exclusion. Then, when Quad finally opened up about her struggles, especially the pain she faced in her marriage, she was met not with support, but with judgment. One of the hardest moments of Quad's life came when she bravely spoke out about the emotional abuse she experienced during her relationship with Dr. Gregory Lunsford. But instead of being wrapped in support by the women she once called sisters, she was doubted, dismissed, questioned, and worst of all, some even stood behind Gregory Evan after he admitted to behavior that clearly pointed to emotional damage, and that was the moment everything changed. What should have been a time for comfort and care turned into a time of cold shoulders and side comments. Women who had once smiled with her on TV either said nothing or made her feel like her truth was too much, too messy, or too hard to believe. Toya Bush-Harris, in particular, was one of the loudest voices casting doubt. She did not offer concern or kindness. Instead, she questioned Quad's story publicly. Her tone was sharp, her words dismissive. Some fans even recall her suggesting Quad was exaggerating the whole thing. That wound was deep, and it never fully healed, so when Quad stood on stage during her thank you speech, she had a choice. She could do what society often expects from women, especially black women. Smile. Be nice. Take the high road. Thank everyone, even the ones who doubted you. Hug the ones who hurt you. Or, she could do something else. She chose truth. By leaving those names out, she said everything she needed to say. No drama. No messy callouts. Just quiet honesty. And that honesty hit harder than any speech ever could. It was not about revenge. It was about freedom. It was about choosing herself after years of putting everyone else first. It was about protecting her peace after constantly being expected to forgive, forget, and move on for the sake of appearances, and fans felt it. Thousands of comments poured in, praising her strength, Many women, especially survivors of emotional or physical abuse, said they felt seen. They knew that silence. They had lived that same rejection. One woman wrote, "Quad didn't throw shade. She told the truth without saying a word. And if they felt left out, maybe it's because they left her when she needed them." This was not just a viral moment, it was a statement, a cultural shift. A woman refusing to hand out praise to people who made her suffer in silence. A woman refusing to smile when there was nothing to smile about. A woman who had finally had enough, and for every person who watched that moment and thought, "Wow, that was cold," there were hundreds more who watched and said, "Finally." Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can do is say, "Nothing at all," and let that silence speak volumes. In today's video, we are diving deep into the truth behind the moment that shocked reality TV fans everywhere. This is not just about a skipped thank you in a speech, it is about years of tension, betrayal, and silence that finally came to a head. So the big questions are, why did Quad suddenly go cold toward her former co-hosts? Why does Toya's reaction to her abuse allegations still leave a mark? And how did the rest of the women who once stood beside her on camera turn their backs when she needed support the most? To understand it all, we have to go beyond the surface. Because what many people thought was just TV drama has roots in something much deeper. Something painfully real. Let's start with Toya's denial. When Quad opened up about the emotional and mental abuse she endured during her marriage, it was not just a shocking reveal, it was a courageous act. But instead of being met with support and sisterhood, she was met with cold responses and, even worse, public doubt. Toya, one of the most vocal cast members, didn't just stay quiet, she actively questioned Quad's truth. She made remarks that cast shadows over Quad's experience, and for many viewers, that moment felt like a betrayal. And the damage did not stop there. The rest of the women, the very ones who once shared couches, conversations, and cameras with Quad, stayed silent. When Toya cast doubt, they did not push back. When Quad spoke with vulnerability, they looked the other way. Whether out of loyalty to her ex-husband, group politics, or something more personal. The result was the same. Quad was left alone. That's why her speech hit so hard. When she stood on stage and chose not to name those women, she was not just being dramatic, she was setting boundaries. She was choosing peace over performance. And she was letting her silence speak for every time. She was expected to be strong, forgiving, and graceful when no one extended the same grace to her. Now that clips, receipts, and old interviews are resurfacing, fans are seeing the bigger picture. Comments are flooding in from people who finally understand the years of quiet tension. Many now realize Quad was not being cold, she was protecting herself. She was drawing a line between real support and fake sisterhood. This is where the story takes a sharp, messy turn. It stops being light gossip and becomes something much more serious. A woman standing up for herself after years of being silenced. So sit down, take a breath, and prepare to see this moment for what it truly is. Because what Quad did was not just leave out a few names, it was a powerful truth, wrapped in silence, and louder than any applause she could have received. To understand why she left the Sister Circle cast out of her speech, we need to go back to the beginning. Back to 2017, when Sister Circle Live first hit the screen. It was introduced as a powerful talk show, led by 4 inspiring black women, Rashanali Silena Johnson, and the others. On the surface, it looked like unity, but underneath, things were never as strong as they seemed. Trina Braxton, and of course, Quad Webb, were brought together to create something powerful. Sister Circle had a mission to uplift women's voices, spark real conversations, and speak directly to black women all across the country. On paper, it looked like a dream team. And at first, it worked. The chemistry on screen felt real. Quad stood out with her charm, boldness, and the wisdom she had gained from her time on Married to Medicine. But behind the cameras, things were very different. Quiet competition started to creep in. There were passive-aggressive moments, shady energy, and tension that no one wanted to talk about. You see, Quad was not just another co-host, she was already a household name. That star power made her the center of attention, and according to multiple behind-the-scenes reports, some of the other women did not like that. Sources say her ideas were often dismissed, her input in meetings ignored, and the sisterhood she was promised, it never truly showed up. And the problems didn't stop there. Even before Sister Circle began, Quad and Toya Bush-Harris were not on good terms. If you watched Married to Medicine, you already know they clashed often. Whether it was about money, relationships, or lifestyle choices, the tension was always Then came the breaking point. Quad opened up about the abuse she said she suffered during her marriage to Dr. Gregory Lunsford. But instead of standing by her, several of the women including Toya seemed to question her story. On social media and in interviews, their tone shifted. They dropped hints and raised doubts. Was it really abuse? Was she being dramatic? To make things worse, some even stood by Gregory even after he admitted to behavior that was clearly emotionally harmful. That moment was not just awkward, it was painful. For Quad, it was a turning point. From then on, viewers noticed a change. She looked distant on camera, less connected, and more guarded. And in 2020, when Sister Circle was cancelled, the show ended without a goodbye. No final photo, no warm farewell, no message from Quad, just silence. Now, years later, that same silence returned during her speech. She did not call anyone out. She did not get loud. She simply left their names off the list, and for those who had been watching closely, it said everything. Imagine going through emotional pain, opening up about your story, and having the women who sat beside you deny or dismiss it. That is what many fans believe happened to Quad during the hardest time of her life. When her marriage ended, she shared her truth not with a big PR campaign, but with quiet honesty. She talked about the emotional stress, the loneliness, and, yes, the alleged abuse. Gregory may not have admitted to all of it, but he did acknowledge behavior that backed up parts of her story, and many people believed her. But then came the betrayal. Toya's reaction, both on the Married to Medicine reunion and on social media, shocked fans. Instead of support, Toya threw shade. She didn't just raise questions, she made Quad look like she was lying. Toya did not just question Quad's story, she brushed it off completely. Let's be clear, she did not say something supportive like, "I believe her, but I still have questions." What she did do was strongly suggest that Quad was making things up. Some fans even say she went as far as to claim, "I don't believe she was abused, she's just trying to twist the story." Whether or not those were her exact words, her attitude said it all. And people noticed. The backlash came fast. Viewers flooded Twitter and Instagram, slamming Toya for showing zero compassion. Many said she cared more about being right than standing up for another woman, especially another black woman who was speaking her truth. One viewer even wrote, "Toya is acting like this is a game show, not someone's real life." At a time when Quad needed kindness and support, she got judgment instead. But Toya was not the only one. Other cast members did not speak up either. Some stayed silent. Some even nodded along. Whether it was out of loyalty to Gregory, dislike of Quad, or just deeply rooted bias, the result was the same. The so-called sisterhood did not break from loud arguments, it cracked. Because no one stood beside the woman who was hurting the most, and for many survivors of abuse, that is what cuts the deepest. Not just the pain of what they went through, but the pain of being doubted, ignored, or erased. That is exactly what Quad seemed to go through on national television. With millions watching, while the women around her stayed quiet. So when she gave her now viral thank you speech and left out Toya and the Sister Circle cast, that was not drama. That was survival. That was a message. You do not get to ignore my truth and still expect a thank you. What people did not see on camera was just as important. After Toya's comments, insiders say Quad pulled back completely. She stopped joining the ladies at off-screen events. Her social media became more polished, more guarded. Some say she started therapy. Others believe she ended several friendships. Because to Quad, this was never just a show with her life. Sometimes, silence says more than yelling ever could. And when Quad stood at that mic and skipped their names, the internet erupted with support. From Twitter to TikTok, YouTube to fan pages, people stood behind her louder than ever. What many thought would be a basic thank you turned into one of the most powerful silent statements in reality TV history, and fans were not buying the fake outrage from the other women. As soon as the clip went viral, hashtags like #IST, and with Quad, #not one thank you, and #Sister Circle exposed started trending. Across Black Twitter and beyond, people were done playing nice. Here are just a few unfiltered reactions. At that girl Jazz, Toya gaslit that woman for years. After her husband admitted it all, y'all still wanted Quad to be polite. For what? She owed them nothing, not a thank you, not a smile, not even eye contact. At the real dumb, that speech hit my soul. Sometimes silence is your justice. Quad didn't throw shade, she told the truth. If they felt left out, that's their guilt talking. At Teen of the Truth, y'all. expected Quad to smile through the pain, hug women who doubted her, and hand out thank yous like nothing happened. Be for real. And it was not just regular fans speaking up. Even big names and bloggers jumped in. Podcaster and TV personality Funky Deneva hinted at what was really going on behind the scenes. In a recent video, he said, "That speech didn't leave out names by accident. That was Quad reclaiming her voice. And I'm not mad at her." Meanwhile, Married to Medicine fans began pulling up old clips receipts that showed Toya and others downplaying Quad's pain, cutting her off when she tried to speak, and even rolling their eyes when she shared her truth. In one viral TikTok clip that has now passed 1.2 million views, a creator edited together a powerful timeline. It showed Quad opening up about her abuse, then cut to Toya smirking as if it was nothing, and finally ended with Quad's speech. She pointedly left Toya's name out. The caption read, "Forgiveness is earned, especially when the pain was public but the apology was silent." That one video hit a nerve. Even survivors of abuse started sharing their own stories in the comments. One emotional YouTube comment under a reaction video said, "I went through an abusive relationship too, and my own friends turned their backs on me. Watching Quad stand strong, not giving grace to people who hurt her that moment broke me. I felt seen." But here's the most powerful part. When popular blogs like The Shade Room and the Jasmine brand reposted the clip, the comment sections exploded and most people had the same message. Good for her, she doesn't owe fake kindness to fake friends. This was not just a trending moment. It felt like a collective sigh of relief. For many Black women especially, it was powerful to watch someone finally take back their story and not be polite about it. TV tried to sell us a story of sisterhood, but behind the scenes, it looked more like rivalry and quiet jealousy hidden under polished smiles. If you were a casual viewer of Sister Circle or Married to Medicine, it was easy to believe the cast had real love for each other. They laughed, shared fashion tips, cracked jokes. It all looked like a group of successful Black women who truly had each other's backs. But longtime fans, the ones who really paid attention, saw something else. From the beginning, Quad always felt a little outside the circle. She was never the one the group ran to when things got emotional. She was not the first to get a hug when the cameras stopped rolling. Her wins were often met with blank stares, and her struggles, usually brushed aside. And let's not forget, Quad was never part of their original inner circle. She did not grow up in their social scene. She was not someone's wife coming into the group through marriage. She came in with her own shine, her own name, her own hustle, her own identity. That should have earned respect. Instead, it brought resentment. According to sources close to the show, there were many times Quad was left out on purpose. While other cast members bonded over dinners, shared group chats, and attended planning meetings, Quad was often excluded. One producer even said, "She wasn't loud, but they acted like she thought she was better than everyone." The truth, she was just different. And we all know what happens when someone's different, they become a target. Toya, especially, seemed to always keep Quad at a distance. Sometimes it was little jokes. Other times it was straight up shade. One moment that fans still talk about is the explosive argument over money, when Toya accused Quad of faking her wealth and trying to show off to the group, or the painful scene where Quad opened up about how broken she felt during her divorce, and the room fell silent. No words of comfort. No hugs. Just a cold wall from women who were supposed to be her friends. And then there were the fans noticed how certain cast members would quietly dismiss Quad's ideas, talk over her, or make slick comments about her being too dramatic or too intense. That kind of language has long been used to silence Black women when they speak with strength and honesty. So when people ask, were they ever really her friends? The answer, based on everything we've seen, is probably not. And that's exactly why her speech hit so hard. Quad did not just skip a few names, she shut the door on a painful chapter. A chapter where she smiled through the hurt. Where she gave grace, but hardly ever received it. Where she stood alone while everyone else stood around her. It was not about holding a grudge. It was about finally choosing herself. That is why people gasped when she left their names out. Not because they thought she forgot, but because they knew she remembered everything. And in that moment, she said something women, especially Black women, are told never to say. No, in a world where Black women are expected to always be strong, always forgiving, always kind, even when they are hurting. Quad's quiet, powerful silence during that speech was revolutionary. Let's break it down. She was on a big stage. Cameras were rolling. Lights were bright. The pressure was on. And still, she stood firm. Most women, especially those in the public eye, are taught to smile, to be polite, to thank everyone, even the ones who caused them pain. But Quad chose a different path. She did not yell, she did not throw insults. She did not spill tea or get messy. She just refused to perform gratitude for people who failed her. And that quiet, purposeful no. It shook the room. Because if we are being honest, how many of us have been in rooms where we were expected to act like everything was okay? To smile just to keep the peace. To say thank you to people who let us down. Quad refused. She changed the script. In doing so, she joined a larger conversation that has been growing for years, especially in Black women's spaces, about emotional labor, fake sisterhood, and the power of walking away when your soul says enough. Her moment sparked real talk across social media platforms.